Welcome back to Beer Brackets, everybody. Today's an awesome episode. We're finally continuing on with the Westmalle Brewery. We did a full review of the Westmalle Double. If you are curious about learning a little bit more about the history of Westmalle, definitely go check that one out. We cover all the details you need to know, all the beer legends, all the juicy beer legends to do with the Westmalle Abbey. In this particular episode, since we've already had that covered, we can jump right into enjoying this triple. Probably, man, one of the most famous triples that there is out there. Am I right? And I think so. You were the one that actually educated me on the history of this beer a little bit. Is it not the originator of the triple style?
That seems, to my understanding, to be the case, because when this beer was developed was a little bit in reaction to the fact that there was like this surge in interest in the lighter colored beer, the German pale lagers and pilsners coming from that area, being the monks, the good monks, wizards, like brewers of dark.
The good monks.
Yeah,
the good wizards.
The dark beers, right? A response to that was to develop a style that was lighter in color, and in fact, like the triple, if I'm not mistaken, is using pilsener malt in the production. Mm-hmm. And the Westmalle Monastery and Trappist brewery was the first one to actually develop this style that then was copied and imitated, let's say, not copied, imitated by others, and has enjoyed ever since a very big success.
And of course, the term triple, it's sort of like a marker in terms of how much of the ingredients are being put into the beer. Of course, the extra or the single being the lighter of the beers, and then the double being a little bit stronger, a little bit higher in ABV. The triples tend to be a little bit higher in ABV than the doubles. Traditionally, this one coming in at 9.5%. And of course, the quads, the kings, the quadruples tend to be the potent, the even more potent ones. This is high. For triple, I think, if I think of the other triples that I've had quite a bit, I mean, the St. Bernardus triple, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that in the 8s? For ABV, I could totally be wrong.
I don't think it's this high, and I might be wrong too. I might be remembering, but this one here seems to be on the higher end of things.
And as you see on the back of the bottle there is that authentic Trappist product stamp of approval on there, as we've seen. If you have been watching Beer Brackets from the beginning, you know, if you've been a student of the Beer Brackets University from the beginning, and you know, it's a very relaxed university. It's not too intensive. We've had a couple of beers, we've seen some things, and we did go over that authentic Trappist product stamp of approval there, and you see it. So that means it is an official wizard monk beer, as it may be.
It has been approved by the what do we call it? Like the congregation of wizards that has to get together, and as we learned from the Spencer Brewery, that they have to get together and approve that beer. Like that's fascinating to me.
Yes,
still.
Yes, that's right. In order to get your Trappist certification, which they did, I believe, could be totally wrong. I read about this before. I believe it was in the 1800s when they were officially Trappist certified. But yes, the congregation of wizards, kind of like when they elect a new pope. You know, and they all get together and they close themselves off and they light a fire and the smoke comes out of the chimney when they made a decision. I'd assume it's the same thing.
I would think so. Yeah. I just think there's more beer involved. Like they have to sample it, like, you know, multiple times to make sure that it's correct. That's
the big difference. Right? When you're choosing a pope, I don't know if they're drinking some you know, high ABV beers in there, but when you're choosing whether or not somebody's going to be trapped, you have to be tasting the beers. So all these monks, these board appointed monks, are sitting in a gaggle of monks together in this monastery trying to decide whether or not they're going to be granting this privilege to a brewery. It's got to be a tough job, man.
I think so, man. I think so. No. But I think it's time, my friend. We got to dive into this adventure.
Right. What a beer adventure this is going to be. I got to tell you, this might be one of, if not the most famous triples that you can find. But I have never tried this one. This is going to be my first time. I know this is... Yes. You enjoy this one. You're a fan, right? I know it's
I like it.
9.5%. You're not partaking often, but...
No, but as you can see, because I'm not partaking often, I decided to go with a bigger version here. The 1 pint and 9.4 fluid ounces, right, at a 750 milliliters.
Yeah, you got the family size triple.
I have the family size, which, interesting enough... As I was telling you before, it's not coming with a cork like it normally does with these size bottles, but it comes actually with a regular beer cap.
Whoa. Starting to look at, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but after opening it, it's foaming up, and there are a million beer bubbles rushing to the top of this bottle, and the foam is pouring out. Okay, I got to pour.
Look at this foam, man.
It's crazy. This beer is alive. Oh. Wow.
Right at the right time.
Oh my God, you're like, yeah, look at that.
I got scared for a second there.
That's like a Czech Milko pour. You just got all foam.
I did, pretty much.
Well, cheers, buddy. Aroma cheers.
Cheers, Aroma cheers.
What do you think?
Oh, this is interesting. Interesting enough, like I think the yeastiness of the aroma is probably the first thing that catches my attention. It's a specific note, and I don't know if you're getting the same, my friend, but I'm just going to say like that clove note, very much like in the Paulaner Hefeweizen. That note specifically just jumped straight out of the glass. Now, I haven't had it in a while, so it's interesting how like that was the first thing that I picked up. Presence of hops, but it's mostly leaning towards the floral note, a little bit like you described, like the Orval. So this initial clove note, a yeasty note that leans into almost this floral, ethereal note, and then you get this rich maltiness that just like sits there underneath and like carries everything else.
That's right.
I really like this. I'm going to start high here, 3, because to me, this, again, like when a beer has like all these elements so very well done, pinpointed, clearly, and it just invites you in the glass, to me, that's a very good sign. So I'm starting high here, my friend.
Yeah, what I really like about the aroma is that it kind of evolves. When I first opened it, it was really, really, really yeasty, and maybe that had to do with just the fact of like, they saw the bottle kind of, the foam exploded out of the bottle, so it was kind of like this really intense sort of beer energy that just came flowing out of the bottle.
The beer energy.
So I got a really strong yeasty aroma, but now it's kind of evolved a little bit. It's a little fruity, definitely floral, yeasty, bready, like fresh bread. It's toned down to a very complex, kind of really balanced, nice aroma. Whereas with some beers, the aroma sort of fades the longer you have it open. This one has just evolved to something different. I'll agree. I'm going to go 3 on 3. This is very intriguing.
Yes.
It's delicious, man. Cheers. Let's go in for
Cheers.
it.
Cheers, my friend.
Let's see my first sip of Westmalle Tripel. This is exciting. Let's see what
To you.
Oh.
And that's where the magic happens.
Wow.
I remembered this. See, now
This
I know
is
why.
not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah, I thought you might get surprised. Like, see, I
was expecting something more along the lines of the St. Bernardus Triple for some reason.
Yeah, it's different.
This is its own thing.
Yeah, it's different.
Wow.
It's interesting because it's the original triple, but it's still like many of the others that I've had are not quite the same. What specifically I'm referring to, and I remembered this, but I'm glad we revisited it because it always surprises me, I think, every time I take a sip of it. You have this very, like you described, like the estery, floral, fruity, yeasty nose that is very, intriguing in a way. But then you take a sip, and it translates into this maltiness that is almost like very, very dry, but like almost like lager-like. It has this like bready, crackery taste, and you still taste all of the yeast, all of those notes, but they're a little bit toned down. To me, really what takes the presence is the malt, which again, like explains why it was developed this way, probably as a reaction to everything else. But really this contrast from the nose and when you get into the palate, that like clear maltiness that resembles a lot like lagers and pilsners is quite unique. I think I'm going to stick with the 3, my friend, so far. What do you think?
I'm having a little bit of trouble separating the taste from the finish in my mind because it's so robust in all its characteristics that it's throwing at you. It evolves so drastically from the time you first take a sip to 4 or 5 seconds later that I'm just trying to like concentrate and pick apart what I'm going to identify as the taste and what's going to be the finish. You described it perfectly, man. You can taste the alcohol, like that sort of ethanol flavor is there slightly, not a lot. I'm not saying that it's strong. For a 9.5% beer, it hides it very well. It makes it a little bit harsh for me in the sense that it almost matches those other flavors that are there. Not in a way that it spoils it or anything, but it makes the beer kind of potent, like I said, robust.
Yeah.
It gives it like this really strong sort of presence. I think I'm going to go with the 2.5. It's very, 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 very good. There's a little bit of something there for me personally that just doesn't quite match my personal taste, and just I think it has to do with that slight alcohol presence there that is detectable. But then again, it gives the beer character.
That's fair, man.
Man, amazing beer so far. Oh my God, through 2 categories. This is just like crazy how good Westmalle's beers are. Even the double, I still dream of that double. It was so delicious.
So good.
So
good.
delicious. All right, buddy, beer bracket tradition, little mouthfeel refresher.
It's time. Luckily, I have plenty here.
Ooh, I love that ending foam. This beer has such a beautiful head to it, like really nice and like creamy, foamy, thick head.
It's nice, isn't it? Like, look at that. Like the
Oh, that aroma. That is such a 3-on-3 aroma. It smells so good. And even like 5 minutes into it here, still, the aroma's stuck. It still smells the same.
It's quite a special in that sense.
Yeah.
So the mouthfeel is very interesting to me. I'm so glad that we're doing this review because it's giving me a chance to really analyze it and understand like how I've perceived this beer also in the past. Considering how carbonated it is,
I think I see where you're going with this, yeah. And I agree. I don't even know. I haven't even heard what you're going to say yet, but I agree.
There is a certain dryness that comes from the malt, that crackiness, right? I think what you pinpointed a little bit on the taste, I think for me plays a bigger factor on the mouthfeel. It's that alcohol presence. It's taking away a little bit of that mouthfeel experience because the carbonation hits you right away, and it's very strong, very potent. But then it transitions quickly into this malt presence. You just feel the alcohol heat. It just
it like warms your mouth.
Yes, exactly. It resembles it very, very, very mildly when you take a sip of a whiskey, a scotch, right? Like you take a sip of that.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Then you have that
man,
first...
You're nailing it. Yeah. You just verbalized
heat.
what I was thinking, and I was trying to plan, like, how am I going to describe this when it comes down to my turn, and, like, you're just...
Oh, I'm happy, man. Like, well, we're having a similar beer experience then. Like, that's good. For me, on the mouthfeel is really where I say,
I see that, yeah.
That's a little bit too much for me, and I think I'm going to go with the 2. Not because it's bad, absolutely not. It's just like a personal preference, and I think that I would almost like a little bit less of that. Like, if it was, like, say, like 7 or 8, and it had a little bit less of that heat, I think I would be more inclined to give it a higher score.
This is so subjective, right? And I would agree with you. And I think I'm going to chat about this a little bit more once we get to the overall experience category. It definitely could use a little bit of a reduction in alcohol for me personally. Mm-hmm. I don't think being at 9.5% necessarily does this beer justice. I think it actually would be much better served being even like 1%, or like you said, 7 or 8, to let those delicious flavors like really, really shine and not be overpowered by alcohol. But yeah, in the mouthfeel, it's interesting because like you would expect there to be a much sharper carbonation, but the carbonation is actually like very soft.
It is.
It's very sort of like soapy. Again, not oily or sticky, but yeah, you feel that heat. A nice sharp carbonation is sort of like a refreshing element when you have the high alcohol. Without it, you just focus on that sort of like warming feeling that you said, which isn't my favorite personally. So I'll agree with you on that. I think 2. All right, so the finish on this beer is interesting, to say the least. What do you think?
I'm having trouble with identifying a note, and I've been trying to think, and I'm going to start.
I know. This beer is a beer mystery, man. It's almost like it's an incognito. It's like a browser in incognito mode.
It is.
It's flying under the radar. It's just trying to hide its characteristics from us. It's like it doesn't want to be reviewed. It's just like a cloak, a beer cloak of mystery.
Maybe that's what it is. It's a beer monk having a cloak.
Maybe.
But then there's this note that I can't quite place. It's almost like a very mild minty.
Yeah, I can see that. Like a spearmint.
And it's not quite hoppy. It's not fruity. It's somewhere in between. Herbal. Maybe that's a better way to put it. A sharp herbal note that shows up in the finish. And I think it's quite interesting. I think I'm going to go with the 2.5, my friend. We always say, like, I think a 3 is something that is wowing you, that you really want to go back to and something. And I think this is done amazingly.
Yeah, God, man, 2.5 is an amazing score. Absolutely. It's amazing. It's so funny. With beers like this, it's like we almost feel like we need to justify giving 2.5s and not giving it a 3, although it's as though it's an insult of some kind, right? But it's just funny because like these breweries have such reputations, right? And these are such long-standing established beers that it's like you feel as though you almost need to justify any kind of, and I put this in quotations, criticisms. We're not criticizing the Spanish shape or any stretch of the imagination, but there is something there. I like that you said minty because you can get that if you want to think about it that way. Yeah, herbal, you nailed it, man. There's something there. There's a characteristic there that just comes out on the finish, and it's very hoppy, bitter. Again, you get alcohol. There's a lot going on. It's a strong finish. It challenges you a little bit, which isn't a bad thing. I like being challenged by beer sometimes, but the finish definitely challenges you. It doesn't wow me, like you said, but it challenges you. So I'm going to go with a 2.5. Yeah, just because it's interesting. I was thinking about going down to a 2, but I'm just like, there's enough character there that it's like, I want to try that again, just so I can go back and get a new reading and say, did I really just taste what I thought I tasted? That was that was interesting to me. All right, so now it's an overall beer experience for the Westmalle Tripel. What do you think?
See, like you said, there is a certain degree of reverence when you approach a beer that you know is generating a style, right? Like, I think you're saying, like, if you like beer and you're a little bit of interested in the history of beer, when you try a beer that you know is like, oh, this beer like produced like this whole style that now like is imitated and etc. You always have a little bit of reverence. So let's keep that in mind. I think this is a beer that takes you on a journey. Mm-hmm. And I think the aroma and the taste are, for me, clearly so far like the most interesting part of this beer experience. I think we both agreed that it's a little bit on the ABV. It's so complex in a way because still now I'm trying to process, and that finish is very, very intriguing to me. It keeps evolving and it changes. So I'm debating here, but I think I'm going to land with the 2.5. This is a beer that I would definitely recommend, and I think that it's intriguing, but it's not quite hitting all the marks for me to be a perfect beer experience.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the alcohol percentage, I'll say it again, and that's my overall take from this beer. I think the high alcohol does this beer a disservice. And again, there might be people out there that really enjoy that. They might really enjoy that warm feeling in your mouth, and they might enjoy that kick, that bitterness kick that you get on the finish. Totally understand that if that's your thing and it's really, really appealing to you. I'm having to convince myself not to go down to a 2 on the overall beer experience just because of that. And even though individually on all these categories, I gave, 2.5s, we were kind of consistent all the way through aside from the taste. Looking at it as an overall experience, it's almost like there's so many delicious, the aroma like sold me on this beer that like I got all these delicious characteristics that didn't really come back again. A little disappointing in that sense because it's like it had so much. There was banana, it was a little bit fruity, it was malt, it was bready, like fresh bread on the aroma, like all this delicious character, and then like hops and the alcohol kind of took over the rest of the way a little bit. But you know what? I can tell that it's really, really well crafted. This is a very well brewed beer. So I'm gonna go 2.5. I think it's interesting, even though it's not personally completely to my taste as a triple. I've had a lot of triples that I like a lot better than this. I can still appreciate how interesting of a beer experience this is. So I'll agree. I'm going to go with a 2.5 too. Wow. Okay. So calculating our final scores for Alessandro, it came out to a 4.33, which in our rating system is an outstanding beer. Myself was a little bit lower, 4.16 on 5, which in our rating system is an excellent beer. Well, there you go, everybody. Let us know down below if you tried the Westmalle Tripel before. What do you think about it? Whatever, see that little beer bell down there. If you do want to join us in the pub again, if you had a good time, if you want YouTube to let you know when we're in the pub, you got to click that little beer bell, and so you'll get a notice to come hang out with us and join us in the pub and have a beer along with Alessandro and I, and have some good conversation along with a good nice pint of beer.
No matter what, don't forget to close your beer brackets, right?